Welcome to Cricket World TV, our latest county cricket hotspot with me, John Pennington, and just down the road in Derby, it's a good morning to Matt Carter. Morning, Matt. How are you doing?
Morning, I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Very well, very well, and it's good to see a little bit of sun peeking through here in the East Midlands, and fingers crossed that we get a bit more sun this week, because it's fair to say that this week's round 3 of the county championship was really quite heavily affected by the rain, wasn't it? Just the one positive result for us to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. It was a frustrating week, really. I mean, we've done pretty well, though, to be fair, in the two previous weeks. Normally, the beginning of April, you got a lot of games washed out, and then it all seemed to come down at once, unfortunately, and it was a frustrating Easter weekend for cricket, really.
It certainly was, but let's start with that positive result. It came in the game between Yorkshire and Northamptonshire, and Yorkshire, having just missed out on the title last year, they got off to a really good start. Drew down at Somerset, and now they absolutely thrashed Northamptonshire. Runs for Gary Balance, bowling Northamptonshire out for 94 with Brooks in superb form. That's a real boost for them, and with Joe Root, I think, coming back this week as well, possibly.
Yeah, definitely. It was a really an impressive win for Yorkshire. I mean, they were just as affected by rain as a lot of other counties, but it obviously didn't matter to them. They had more than enough time to beat Northamptonshire. I think that Jack Brooks took so many wickets against Northampton was a bit of a given. Just tend to happen against the former sides, but yeah, Gary Balance was looking good, and I'd assume he is pretty much inked in now to make a home debut for England when the Sri Lanka series does start. As you say, Joe Root's coming back, so things are looking very good for Yorkshire. I mean, Ryan Sidebottom, he's 36 now, but he hasn't shown any signs of age. He had a very good match as well. And yeah, everything looks in place for Yorkshire. I think after the Somerset game, which is a bit of a non-entity, it was important for them to get off the mark, and yeah, they're looking strong again.
You mentioned Ryan Sidebottom, 36 there, Matt, and I know you were having an interesting conversation on Twitter last night about some of the veterans performing very well in county cricket this year. If you look at the likes of Ed Joyce, Michael Klinger, and a few others as well. So age no barrier to scoring runs and taking wickets in county cricket, certainly not at this early stage.
No, definitely. I mean, I was trying to choose an 11 of veterans, and tell you what, it's difficult. There's so many of them knocking about. You look at some of them, you've got Murray Goodwin and Glenn Chappell are into their 40s, and then you've got guys like Chander Paul, 39, and you've got John Lewis, who seems to have found another gear going to Sussex. So yeah, it is very, very much an old man's club at the minute, county cricket.
Sussex are not in action this week, but there was some good news for them yesterday with Chris Jordan signing a new contract. He's had a super start to the season, and that's again really good news for them to keep him on the books for another couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Sussex, I don't know how much they're going to see of him if England do call him up, which is a possibility. But yeah, he's been brilliant for Sussex. He's really given their attack a bit of bite that he was missing for a couple of years. And with him there, if they do see a fair amount of him this year, then it could just be the springboard they need to win the championship. If he does go missing with England, you worry whether they've got that extra bit of cut in their attack. I mean, McGoffin's a good bowler, but he's not as hostile as Jordan, and they'll be a little bit touchy about whether he is going to get called up for England, I'd imagine.
Okay, let's talk our way through these draws then. We've put it off long enough. Durham drew with Somerset. Some runs there for Nick Compton. He's probably not going to play for England, but to certainly put his hand up if there are injuries, for example. Just give us your take on that game.
Yeah, I mean, he's done as much as he can, Nick Compton. I mean, you can only score as many runs as he has done. I don't think anyone else has scored more in the last 2 years as Compton. But Somerset were pretty impressive, actually. I mean, Durham managed to set him a testy in total on the final day. It's not easy at Chesterley Street. I mean, I know there was a little bit talk that the pitch had flattened out a bit, but to score the 100 that Compton did in that manner, and for Somerset to get the draw relatively comfortably was impressive stuff, and it showed a backbone that was perhaps missing a little bit last year. And had there been an extra hour in that game, the way that Craig Kieswetter was going, I mean, Durham might have been getting a little bit worried themselves. And this is the second time that Durham have failed to bowl out a side on the last day. I mean, they won't be concerned just yet, but it isn't the same sort of results that they were picking up at the tail end of last year.
Okay, and some drama up at Old Trafford where Peter Moore sort of bid farewell to Lancashire. That one also ending in a draw, but might have gone either way, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Lancashire's batting failed them a little bit once again. I mean, Paul Horton, sorry, was pretty much the glue that kept him in that game. I think he batted for a remarkable amount of hours for scores of 83 and 84. And then you thought when Lancashire had come, Lancashire would get home. I think they needed 120 in about 29 overs, something like that. But they did make a bit of a meal of that chase, in all fairness. I mean, Lancashire bowled well. Simon Kerrigan, it was good to see him back in the wickets. And then, obviously, the Lancashire light struck. I think there has been a little bit of talk over why they went off for that final time when apparently the light was as good as it had been while they were playing. But I guess that's a debate for a different day, the bad light situation. But it is frustrating for Warwickshire. I mean, already they've played 2, they haven't won 1. You look at Sussex, they're 2-2, and it is early days, but it can be difficult to play catch up.
Certainly can, and there's nothing like a debate on over bad light to sort of get people talking. So that rounds up sort of Division 1. Division 2, oh, sorry, before I go on to Division 2, that Lancashire game of Warwickshire, I think that was the one that you picked out that you would have liked to have gone to last week. So it would have been an interesting one to see that late drama.
Yeah, definitely. It had been an interesting one, but a frustrating one at the same time, I'd imagine.
And the one that I picked out, I think I said I would have gone to Derbyshire and Hampshire, and that one also ending in a draw, as did, of course, all of the games in Division 2. Let's start sort of with your review of that one for us.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really the lively wicket that we sort of expected at Derby. It was pretty flat, to be honest. I mean, a lot of it was pretty much batting practice, really, all round. I mean, Derbyshire are pleased that Stephen Moore's got some runs in his second game. They have been missing runs from the opening slot, so that's a positive for them. I think Hampshire over there, 3 games, pretty much everyone has now got half a century, and they've got 5 guys already averaging over 50, so it was positive for them. But apart from that, it never really got going, to be honest, this one, with all the rain and everything.
Yeah, I quite agree. Glamorgan, Gloucestershire, this is one that I think Gloucestershire would be quite frustrated that they didn't pick something up out of this, or was it the other way round? Sorry, I haven't sort of got my notes in front of me.
Yeah, Gloucestershire had Glamorgan 9 wickets down, and then Paul Hogan and I think it was Dean Cosker batted for, must have been like 9 overs when had they lost that wicket, they were only about 40 runs ahead with about, I think there was still a good 45 minutes of play available, so Gloucestershire will be frustrated. I mean, it was a game that looked like it was meandering into a draw. I mean, on that 4th day, there was a little bit of play just after or before lunch, I can't quite remember, and then it got to, I think, about 4:45. Glamorgan probably thought they'd taken the draw, and then, lo and behold, they were back on the field facing a very tricky 45 minutes of play, and Will Gidman, who I know Michael Klinger's been talking up this week about possibly getting England recognition, he took 6 and had Glamorgan on the ropes. But credit Glamorgan, I mean, it was always going to be difficult coming out for that final 45 minutes. They had very little to gain and a lot to lose, and they just about got there. But unfortunately for Gloucestershire, that was the second time that Glamorgan's last wicket pair had frustrated them. I think Graham Wagg had whacked a 50 in the first innings with Hogan again, and that, I think they lost 22 overs bowling to the last wicket pair, and that is probably what eventually cost Gloucestershire in the end.
I think it was, and it's not just Michael Klinger tipping Will Gidman to play for him. I was reading a column by Hamish Marshall this week. He's also sort of put his weight behind Will Gidman to play for England as well. So a little bit of a groundswell of opinion, certainly among his teammates, that he's good enough to do the job. So we'll just wait and see whether that transpires. I mean, it must be good for England that in these first 3 or 4 weeks of county cricket, there are quite a few players putting their hands up, putting good performances in to give them plenty to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only doubt with Gidman is whether he's quick enough. I mean, you just look at how apprehensive England have been to pick Graham Onions, who's taken wickets non-stop, and I just wonder if England will go down that road. But you look at his first-class averages, and they're phenomenal. I mean, he averages 36 with a bat, I think, and 21 with a ball. I mean, you can't really do much more than that to put yourself in the frame. He's doing everything he can.
So a yard or two more pace, and maybe you can see him battling with Ben Stokes for that number 6, number 7 spot, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. If he could have a yard or two more pace, or if he could grow a couple more inches, then definitely he'd be right up there.
And while we're sort of talking about England players and selection, just your thoughts on the news yesterday that Mick Newell has been added to the selection panel, Ashley Giles standing down. So you've got James Whittaker, national selector, Peter Moores, Angus Fraser, and Mick Newell as England's all-new selection panel. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it's interesting, man. You do wonder a little bit about a conflict of interest. I mean, you've got Fraser in there, who is obviously coaching Middlesex, and then Newell coaching Nottinghamshire. I mean, obviously Newell is going to be watching a lot of county cricket, but you just wonder if there is going to be a little bit of conflict of interest. And then, say for instance, James Taylor does get called up, but it probably deserved it. There will be those who suggest he'd only gain that call up because Mick Newell's become on the panel, but again, he'll know his cricket, Newell. It's just whether there will be a bias towards Nottinghamshire. I mean, it probably won't be a sort of forced bias, but because he's seen more of Nottinghamshire, he'll obviously know more about the Nottinghamshire players.
Yeah, and part of me wonders if there's a long-term plan here, because he's coached the Lions before, he's coached the under-19s, he was one of the outside candidates for the head coach job. So I wonder if he's sort of being kept on board and said, look, we are interested in you moving forward, maybe sort of 3-4 years down the line, to take on a greater role either in the coaching team or potentially as national selector.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they must have been impressed with Newell at interview if they've obviously earmarked him for this role, and maybe Moores' extra experience just got him the job over him. But yeah, it could be a stepping stone for him. Okay,
well, back to talking about draws. Kent and Leicestershire, that was Leicestershire's first match, of course, but again, one that sort of meandered its way towards a no result, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, for Leicestershire, there were plenty of positives to take out of this game. I mean, this is a team who last year were a long way behind the rest. I mean, it was virtually clear daylight, and then Leicestershire for the wooden spoon. But there were plenty of positives for them. The batting looked a lot better already. I mean, Greg Smith, I think, hit his first century for 2 or 3 years, which is remarkable, really. And then Angus Robson, who is brother of Sam Robson, he scored an impressive 81 in their second innings. And they were still missing Ramnaresh Sarwan with a bad back, which is frustrating for them. But the signs are that Ned Eckersley might not be fighting such a lone battle. The bowling is the worry, but Charlie Shrek's brought experience and did okay, and Anthony Ireland had an excellent game all round. I mean, he smashed a career best score out of nowhere, really, and Jigar Naik actually did put Kent under a little bit of pressure in their second innings. I think they were 36 for 4, and you just wondered whether they were going to teeter a little bit more. There was probably not enough time for Leicestershire to force it. For Kent, it is a little bit concerning. I mean, you consider fixtures against Worcestershire and Leicestershire, they're pretty nice fixtures to start with, you'd imagine, for a Kent side who are looking to perhaps get amongst the promotion push this year, but they lost all the key sessions against Worcestershire, and here they struggled again. I mean, the batting, which last year was their strongest facet, they've stumbled a bit this year. Rob Keys struggled, as he has done before when he's had the Kent captaincy, and that will be a concern. Brendan Nash, who is another one of those veterans, he hasn't started as well as he did last year, and the bowling, Dougie Bollinger came and did well against Worcestershire, but Leicestershire did manage to get on top of him here, and there are concerns for Kent. I mean, there's a couple of young cricketers who've done well for them. Daniel Bell-Drummond's probably been their shining light, and Adam Riley came in here and did a good job, but it is a little bit worrying for them, the start they've made, especially with considering their next 3 fixtures. I think they've got Surrey at the Oval, Derbyshire at Derby, and then Gloucestershire at Gloucester, and they're not easy games, those 3.
Certainly not. You mentioning Anthony Ireland there, Matt, just to give me an idea for another of your sort of county cricket 11 sort of exiles, Zimbabwean exiles. You've got sort of Goodwin, you've got Ireland, you've got Kyle Jarvis, and there must be a few others as well.
Yeah, you could add in Sean Irving to that as well. Yes. There's a fair few knocking about, yeah.
Okay, the last game then to have a look at Surrey drawing with Essex. I was reading a press release this morning from Essex. They were pretty pleased with how they went there because Surrey was a very good team with some very good players on the show, and they were making the point that they're still missing Reece Topley, Sajid Mahmood, and Salisbury, so they're a little bit light on their bowlers. So I think they probably took more positives out of that draw than Surrey did. What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, Essex bowling attack is probably the best in the division in terms of depth. I mean, we're not even noticing that much that they are missing Topley and Mahmood. I mean, Masters is probably the most reliable player on the county circuit, and then another one yet, but not quite old enough to get in that side, worryingly. Tyrone Mills, I mean, he started the season really well actually. Mills, he's quick, he's a left armer, and he had another impressive game. I think he picked up 4 wickets in Surrey's first innings. He caused Derbyshire a lot of havoc in their second innings last week when you look at that attack with Masters, Napier, Mills, and then once the wickets do get a bit slower, a bit drier, Monty Panesar will be there as well. And Essex look good actually. And if they can take advantage of these early games where they have got Alistair Cook and pick up some wins, then I think they finished 3rd last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they did go one better this time. But certainly with Cook there, the teams in Division 2 aren't that affected by England players, and Cook is probably the only one, and it's a massive boost to have him back. I think he was the only player in that game to even pass 50, apart from Graham Smith who got a 60. But certainly for Essex, things are looking good.
Okay, so an early season prediction there from Matt. And yeah, I think you're right. The bowling, there's plenty of bowling stops, and the Alistair Cook effect could just keep them going. They'll presumably have Ravi Bopara, because I don't see him getting back into the Test team as well. He's obviously a vastly experienced player as well. Okay, so round 4 fixtures, they all get underway tomorrow. Let's start in Division 1. Middlesex taking on Yorkshire at Lords. I think Yorkshire's win at Lords last year was their first in 10 attempts, but they must be going in on the back of that win earlier in the week over Northamptoshire, so full of confidence.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, this. I'd imagine this will be Yorkshire's first proper test, I would say. I mean, Middlesex are a decent side. They've won 1 and lost 1. They claimed victory last time out. I think Yorkshire's batsmen are definitely going to get their biggest test in this game. I mean, Northants were lacking in strike bowlers, but you look at Middlesex with Finn and Murtagh, it's not going to be so easy for Yorkshire. But obviously, Joe Root's coming back, that's going to boost them. But it definitely is going to be another indicator of how they're going to go this year. I mean, if they perform well at Lords against the Middlesex side, who, with a lot of guys with a point to prove, I mean, Robson will be looking to fully confirm his place in the England Test side. And it's going to be a good one, that one, I'd imagine.
I think it will. I think it'll be one to keep a very close eye on. Northamptonshire against Lancashire. Yes, Northamptonshire are playing at home, but you have to favour Lancashire here, don't you?
Yeah, 2 teams without a win as of yet. I mean, Northampton were absolutely pounded last week against Yorkshire. I mean, it was a little bit reminiscent of Derbyshire last year, to be honest. And there is a massive step up in quality between these divisions, as Derbyshire did fine last year. I mean, if you do put in a poor session, then on most occasions you are going to get punished for it. I mean, Northampton, that session where they were dismissed for 90 odd with the bat, there just isn't any way back from that. And unfortunately for them, David Sales is still out. He's a massive loss. Rob Keogh as well. I mean, I did hear a rumour that Northampton actually tried to loan Alex Hales from Nottinghamshire this week. I mean, that's how bad things have got for them. They are hoping to get Sahil Tanvir in as an overseas player. He perhaps isn't the out-and-out strike bowler that they are missing, but it's better than what they've actually got at the minute. I mean, they are struggling for just someone to sort of spearhead their attack, with David Willey still out, unable to bowl. But Lancashire themselves are in need of a victory, really. I mean, you look at their batting lineup, and it is a little bit sketchy at the minute. I mean, it's almost as if Horton and Prince fail, then there's very little else. I think in every game they've almost collapsed a little bit at some stage in their innings. I think only once have they passed 300, and even then they were 150 odd for 6, something like that. So they need guys like Lewis Rees and Proctor, people like that need to start stepping up and support Prince and Horton, and obviously Josh Butler as well. He's got a point to prove. He did okay against Warwickshire, but didn't get any significant scores, and his wicket actually did trigger a collapse. So he'll be looking to improve and stake his claim for England.
Yes, quite a lot was made of him sort of making his debut, and maybe he didn't quite live up to the hype. But a little bit unfair, I think, to put that much sort of pressure on him. He's still early days in his career. Next up at Trent Bridge, just sort of down the road for both of us, of course, Nottinghamshire against Warwickshire. On paper, that looks like quite a tasty encounter. But Warwickshire haven't, as you say, had a great start to the season. So would you put Nottinghamshire in the favourites bracket for this one?
It's difficult to know what you're going to get with Nottinghamshire, to be honest, in these early stages. I mean, they were really good against Lancashire in that opening encounter, and then they were pretty poor against Middlesex. So it depends what Notts team we get, really. I mean, I'd imagine Peter Siddle will be much improved from the bowler we saw against Middlesex, having had a little bit more practice under his belt. It is important for Warwickshire. They can't really afford another defeat here. They did improve against Lancashire compared to that opening defeat against Sussex. I mean, the bowling was looking a lot better, but again, it's another case they need to support Ian Bell, really. Bell has been their one standout player, and obviously he's not going to be there for much longer, and they could do with taking advantage of having his services, really. But Varun Chopra did show a little bit of form against Lancashire, and they'll be hoping for him to start to get some big scores, and William Porterfield got half century. I think it'll be a close one, this. I would imagine Warwickshire will improve again a little bit, but whether it's enough to... If Notts perform to their standard, then I'd imagine that Notts will be favourites for that one.
Yep, and the next one we've got Sussex against Somerset. This is a battle between two teams who've had a pretty good start to the season. Somerset unbeaten and Sussex doing very well as well. So which way might this one go? Could this be a key game this early in the season to determine whether these two are or aren't title challengers?
I think it's a pretty key game for Somerset. I mean, they have had a good start, and they have showed a lot of character. I think you look at that performance against Durham, and you look at their young bowlers as well against Durham. They performed well. I mean, Lewis Gregory, I think, took 8 or 9 wickets in that game. But if they don't win one of these 3 games, then, like we say, you're probably not going to catch Sussex if Sussex have won 3 out of 3 and you're yet to get off the mark. But there are definitely more promising signs for Somerset. I think there's a couple of little niggles. Marcus Trescothick's form is a little bit of a concern. He didn't score a century last year, and he hasn't started off that brilliantly. And neither has Alvaro Peterson or James Hildreth, to be honest. And they'll be looking for a couple of those 3 to step up. But the signs are positive after last year's struggles. Sussex are still without Chris Nash, still without Luke Wright, but with Ed Joyce in the form that he is in, you don't really need anyone else. I think this might be Joyce's last game there before he just go for miss a game to go and play with Ireland. So
yeah, they play.
He'll be looking to
6th and 8th of May. They play Sri Lanka, so yeah, that'll be his last chance.
Yeah, so he'll be looking to go out on a high, and obviously they're without those 3 available for the games while those Ireland games are going on. I think Sussex will be keen to get a result here because it's going to be tough without their 3 highest scorers from last year. I mean, I'm not sure if Matt Pryor is going to be fit for this week, but they could probably do with Pryor being in that side, to be honest.
There's Division 1 sort of nicely predicted for you. Division 2, we've got Gloucestershire hosting Essex at Bristol. I mean, Gloucestershire, they're always a very strong proposition at Bristol, but Essex, we've talked about, have got plenty of squad depth there. They're sort of likely to go in unchanged, so could be a close one, this.
Yeah, I reckon so. It's going to be tough for Essex. I wouldn't imagine this is going to be a massively high-scoring one at Gloucestershire. I mean, you look at the 2 sides' bowling attacks. I think it's going to be interesting how Will Gidman does go against Alistair Cook, actually. That might be something where he can prove himself there. Gloucestershire is still missing a couple of bowlers as well. Craig Miles had a good season last year. He's currently out injured. I think it's going to be tough for Gloucestershire's batsmen, though, against Essex's attack. And I just wonder if the Cook factor might again give Essex the edge there. I think Gloucestershire's batsmen haven't been in great form as of yet. I mean, Will Tavares made a excellent start to the season. He looks an excellent prospect, but there's a couple of other guys that are just looking to find their feet at the moment.
Hampshire take on Surrey in what has to be the battle of the biggest sides in Division 2. That's down at the Aegeus Bowl. Both teams, I think, coming into some form after Surrey has made a pretty poor start. Anything to really look out for here?
I reckon this one's going to be tough for Surrey, to be honest. I think Hampshire are looking good. Surrey have only had 3 players score a half-century in their opening 2 games, and I think the highest score is 74. What they really need is for Graham Smith to start to get the odd big score or two, because they're still without Vikram Solanki. He's a big loss, and the rest of the lineup is a little bit inexperienced, that batting lineup. I know, apart from Davis and Smith, and you just look at them against Hampshire with a batting lineup that is firing, and with Kyle Abbott, who has found his feet quickly. Tomlinson's looking good. I mean, the only real negative for Hampshire is they're just missing a little bit of support to Tomlinson and Abbott. I think Matt Coles hasn't started that well. I think he's got 5 wickets of 53, which is a little bit disappointing from him. But I think it is going to be tough for Surrey, this one, especially with Hampshire at the Rose Bowl, where they were pretty dominant against Gloucestershire a week ago.
Yeah. Grace Road hosts Leicestershire against Glamorgan. I mean, Glamorgan have made a very good start, but Leicestershire, as you were saying earlier, saw some very positive signs last week. So, which way do you see this one going?
Again, it's a difficult one. This, I mean, Leicestershire searching
on the spot.
They're looking for their first win since, I think, August 2012, Leicestershire. So it's a run that's gone on a long time, and they'll look at this game as an opportunity to break that duck. And if they can break that early, then it could pan out to give them a brighter season. For Glamorgan, they got out of jail a little bit last week. They'll be looking for more from their batsmen, I think, to not collapse as they did against Gloucestershire twice. I mean, I know conditions were very tricky at Gloucester, but you're looking at guys like Jack Rudolph. He had a pretty disappointing debut. They'll be looking for him to have found his feet a little bit. Now, Murray Goodwin hasn't had the best of starts. You wonder whether he can go on for another season. I mean, he probably will come back and score 1,000 runs again. But yeah, I'd say it is a tricky one to call, this one. I think Glamorgan, if they perform how they did against Surrey, should be favourites. But then, if they chuck in a performance like they did against Gloucestershire, then Leicestershire will fancy their chances of perhaps picking up that much sought after victory.
And the final game to look ahead to is Worcestershire against Derbyshire at New Road. Worcestershire not in action last week, but I understand that Syed Ajmal has now arrived, and that's going to be a key test for Derbyshire's batsmen. Yeah,
I mean, I've seen Derbyshire's batsmen play spin a little bit before, and it hasn't been great, to be honest, the results of that. So it's going to be a challenge for Derbyshire against Syed Ajmal. I just wonder what the pitch is going to play like, to be honest. I mean, I don't know whether Worcestershire had the sort of time to prepare a surface that is going to suit Ajmal. I mean, you think if it is a turning surface with Ajmal and Moeen Ali, then Derbyshire might struggle. I mean, David Wainwright is a pretty standard spinner. He's not anywhere near the class of Ajmal or perhaps even Moeen Ali. So I think it is going to be tough for Derbyshire, but I do believe Derbyshire have a better batting lineup than Worcestershire. I think, as we said, Stephen Moore going back to his former club, and Chanderpaul has looked in decent touch this year. Wayne Manson not so much, so they'll be looking to him to make runs. I think the biggest worry for Derbyshire is what comes after those 3. I mean, it's almost been constant collapse once you do get 3 wickets, and then they've been relying on Groenewald to hit a quick 50 down the order, but they do need more from the Chesney users of this world to really step up. But Worcestershire have been impressive this far, and Ajmal brings them a massive boost. They're playing well, and they'll be high on confidence, and it's going to be tough for Derbyshire, that one, but they do have enough to compete. But I'd possibly slightly favour Worcestershire with the Ajmal factor.
Ajmal factor, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll finish as we normally do, Matt, by asking if you had to pick one game to go to, and I think you were spot on last week to go to, theoretically, to go to Old Trafford. I think you picked a good one the week before, so which one of those games would you choose to head to and watch this week?
I'm going to go for a little bit of a less glamorous option this week. I'm I'll probably go to Leicestershire. I'm going to go out on a win here and believe that Leicestershire will pick up that long-awaited win against Glamorgan. It'll probably come back to bite me in the bum, but yeah, I'm going to head to Grace Road. I think this week, Leicestershire, and back them to finally get that victory they've been waiting for.
Well, we saw the Delhi Daredevils end a very long losing run earlier in the week, so why not Leicestershire making it sort of following in that example as well? I think if I was going to go anywhere, I would go down to Lords. I think that contest between Middlesex and Yorkshire is going to be absolutely fascinating. Gary Balance obviously going to force his place into the England team. Joe Root coming back potentially, and Middlesex with Sam Robson as well, looking good as well. So that would be. But there are, to be honest, that's a really nice set of fixtures this week. I think you could pick any of those and almost expect to see something interesting. But I would go for Middlesex Yorkshire if I had to go somewhere.
Yeah. Let's just hope it doesn't chuck it down again the whole week.
Yeah, fingers crossed the weather holds good. So that sort of rounds it all up nicely. So Matt, thank you very much once again for your time and insight. Really enjoyed our county cricket hotspot once again, and we'll catch up next week to look back on the action as it happens.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure as always.
There we are. So thank you very much for watching this latest edition of Hotspot County Cricket. And from Matt and myself, for all of us here at Cricket World TV, thank you for watching and goodbye.